We're here with Papangu from Brazil.
Hello, hello. Hi, folks.
Hello,
My name is
guys.
Marco.
Hello.
I'm Raí. I play guitar and sing for Papangu.
Yeah, I'm Marco. I play bass and I sing for Papangu.
Great. Can you tell us a bit about the lineup changes that have happened since the last time we heard from you?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, so our first record, Holoceno in Portuguese, came out in 2021 and it had a different lineup. It was the original lineup of the band, which is composed of me, Marco, Hector on guitar, Raí on guitar, and Nicholas on drums. But then the record was basically almost finished except for the drums. By the time the pandemic hit, we hadn't recorded the drums yet. So we had to hire someone else to play for Nicholas' parts. And then I got in touch with a friend of mine, Torstein Loftus, who I had met on a trip and asked him to record some parts. So that's basically the quartet that plays on Holoceno.
All right. And since then?
Yeah, recently.
About that, I can tell.
Yeah.
So after the release of Holoceno, we felt that we needed to go on the road to tour, to play gigs. And because of the absence of Nicholas, Nicholas is a great friend of ours. He has been with the band since the beginning, even before me. The band started as a trio, but he started to dedicate his life to his academic career, so he couldn't make time to be with the band and be with doing his career. So and even he started his doctorate in Germany, right, Marco?
Yeah, I think he's studying
France.
in Karls, forgot the name of the city. Yeah, Karlsruhe. Yeah, exactly.
Because of that, he couldn't dedicate himself to the band, and we needed to go on the road. So because of that, we started looking for people to fill the roles for Marco. Marco is living in Europe, so he's still in the band, but he cannot be present for every gig, especially here in Brazil. So we needed to find people that had the same vibe as us, that needed to fill these roles to play bass when Marco is absent, to play drums to replace Nicholas, and we also felt that we needed to put someone to play keyboards, because I think it made the sound of the band more whole, more complete. So in that feeling, we looked for someone else, and we ended up finding Rodolfo, Pedro, and Vitor.
Yeah, it's just for clarification, the band started kind of like as a stoner rock trio back in 2012.
Yeah.
I entered the band in 2014, and then the arrangements got way more complex as we just started like focusing on composition, and we learned a lot about composition and production techniques throughout those years. And so by the time we recorded Holoceno, the arrangements were way too complex for 4 people. So we had to build up the lineup. And then I had recorded some keyboard parts for Holoceno, but I'm not an actual keyboardist. So I had to call a guest to doing the solos and etc. And then we ended up calling Rodolfo and Pedro to ship in to make it band more complex. And then we found Vitor, the drummer, at last. And the cool thing about Vitor is that he's both like a professional death metal drummer. He also plays in the power metal bands. He just played yesterday with Radu Falaschi, who's the second singer from Angra, by the way. And also, he's also very well versed in Brazilian traditional music, like from the northeast of Brazil, which is the region where we come from. So because our music really is imbibed in the folklore of our region, then we need to be able to play those specific rhythms and be acquainted with the harmonies and the different kinds of melodies. So the lineup change was needed in order for us to cover the grounds that we wanted to cover.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't be having this interview if you were still just a stoner rock trio.
Definitely so. It was quite boring at first, I have to say. It had some energy, but it was, very mature-ish.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't mind like a short EP that would be just the three of you redoing some stoner rock, but obviously I wouldn't want that change of direction now that I'm listening to music that doesn't sound like anything else I've heard.
Thanks, I appreciate it. We did record something with Nicholas, by the way, like something very raw. It's not stoner rock, it's like extremely heavy doom metal and quite angular, but we're going to release that in the future. But this is kind of let's put that on the cover. You can mention it in the interview, no need to cut it, but yeah, we can't give more details than that.
Right. No details. Well, bold of you to assume enough people will be watching this anyway. Okay. Now that you've expanded to a 6-people lineup, if you had to expand to an 8-people lineup for the next album, what instruments would the new members play?
Saxophone. Actually, one of the guys in the band is learning saxophone at the moment, and he's gotten quite good. I think he picked up a saxophone like 3 months ago, and he performed with Papangu a couple of days ago. So
can he play Careless Whisper?
he can play anything on every instrument you can think of. Pedro, who's the guy we called in to be my replacement when I'm in Europe, he plays bass when I'm absent, but when he gets his chance, he can play flute, saxophone, keyboards. He plays guitar exactly like John McLaughlin, but cooler. He plays xylophone as well, vibraphone. He played the rubber chicken in our previous record, and he knows every single Brazilian percussion instrument. He's an absolute genius.
Amazing.
So we need another person to play saxophone while he plays something else. And I think it would be very, very, very cool to have a trumpet as well. I would love to write music for saxophone and trumpet in addition to the other stuff, just so that we could get some cool arrangements.
I was thinking maybe saxophone, as Marcos said, but someone to be a dedicated percussionist for the band would be cool as well.
Yeah, that would work. Totally.
All right. I'm not reviewing your next album unless you have 8 people on it.
We're shooting for 80, but depends on the budget. Depends on how many records we sell now.
Fuck. I have to buy it then.
Go ahead.
You guys are playing Knotfest Brazil, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
It was quite a surprise.
No, you found out you were playing?
No.
We weren't expecting any of it because the album wasn't out yet when we got the call, and at first the promoter, he didn't say what was from. He couldn't reveal that it was Knotfest, but we knew it was because he said, "Oh, we wanted to see if Papangu's availability to play in a show in São Paulo. It's in October." That's all he said. But we knew that it was Knotfest because that's the only event that's happening in São Paulo in late October. So we started to go crazy. Wow, it's Knotfest. We're gonna get hired? We're gonna get called? We don't know. And then it just happened. It was like amazing for us because I feel that it's every band's dream to play in a big gig like this, even if you don't like if you don't identify, I think, with the festival as a whole, because I think Papangu is a little bit different that what Knotfest proposes, but it is a dream in any way, shape, or form. So we're happy, stoked, and we cannot wait to October to arrive to play that.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice seeing you. I mean, not me personally, I won't be there, but it'll be Papangu and Baby Metal on the same scene.
Precisely, on the same day.
On the same day, yeah. The two most avant-garde metal bands.
Yeah, I think like the closest bands that we have there at Knotfest to our sound are maybe Baby Metal and Meshuggah. So I think we're maybe like in the middle term between those bands.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So other than Knotfest, tell me a bit about the story of your new album, because I know it's based on a let's say I'm reminded of the folklore that also we have the haiduks, which are also like Robin Hood like figures. They have a similar let's say folklore made around them, like they're highly revered now afterwards, probably not so much during the day, but they're mostly seen as heroes of the lower class.
Yeah, we have something similar going on in Brazil. So like all the story came to us, like we grew up hearing about those stories about folklore, about Lampião, this historical figure. And he's basically known as a bandit king. He was quite an impactful person that he posed maybe the symbol of resistance in the Brazilian countryside against both the government and the police and the very, very, very powerful and very, very influential farmers that basically dominated the land, and they could other extrajudicial killings of people that bothered them. You know, it was quite horrible. And that was always like a remnant of the slave system in Brazil, where you had those concentrations of power in the higher echelons of society, and there was basically nothing you can really do about the inequality that came from that. So Lampião was basically like a symbol of resistance against those people. And we had the idea of doing that record early on. One of our first songs was actually named Lampião. It was like a 12-minute epic song, but it didn't really cut as well as we wanted it to, so we kind of shelved that idea. And we did Holocene first. And Holocene basically allowed us to have the confidence to tackle that story in a way that made sense, in a way that we were satisfied with. So we took that out of the archives, we saved some of that song's original themes and etc. And we basically rewrote the whole thing into an actual record. But yeah, the story of Lampião it's quite a different scale from the other General Robin Hood stories, because he was not really like a historically beloved creature. He was quite ruthless. He was extremely violent. He also raped a lot. He murdered a lot of people. So not really like the typical hero. But we wanted to tackle the story and try to re-signify the myth that had been overtaken by some far-right people in Brazil. So they wanted to try and make Lampião as a symbol of manhood, as a symbol of like, I don't obey the rules.
While also
I make justice.
Having the, let's say, being pro-police violence.
Yeah, exactly. As if like I can do justice with my own hands. I don't need the courts to tell me what's right, you know? And that was kind of like overtaken by some political figures in Brazil. We wanted to get that out of those hands and just break that false myth that had been built around it. We don't really idolize it, even though we call him King Lampião Rei. Rei means king in Portuguese. We just want to view that story from another prism, you know, from another point of view, and that kind of cover those blind spots and threw them away.
Sort of demystify the story.
Precisely, and demystifying it by mystifying it even more.
Yes, that was what I was going to say. The mystifying by mystifying it is the perfect pitch for Lampião Rei.
All right, and this is like the story will be continued on the next record, right?
Not necessarily on the next record. We want to do another record to finish the story, but it doesn't have to be the next record. We're still composing things, and I think the compositions will tell us which story should it be. So yeah, not necessarily it's going to be the third Papangu record.
Okay, so it's gonna come soon, but you're not necessarily, you might also be working on a third record that's not the continuation of the story.
Yes, precisely. We have like maybe 10 songs that we're still working on. I think I have 5. I think Hector has 2 songs that he's working on. I has another one, and the other boys have other songs that they are thinking of doing. We also might want to do a record interpreting the compositions of this Brazilian composer, but we cannot say anything about it now. So it's yeah.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah. If you heard anything about it, then I would have to hire someone to cue you, but that's fine.
All right. I'll have to watch my back from now on. All right. Now, because I'm European and Latin America is still like one. I cannot tell all the cultures apart, but I know that Brazil is different because you speak Portuguese. But I still see Brazil, even though it's a huge country, as like one thing. Obviously, in the Amazon it's different than in Rio, but I still don't know like what are the regional differences. And I know you said that you're from the northeast, which is pretty far away from where Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro are. Well, the first question is, how is the folk music in there different? And the second one is, how often do you get musicians that actually play there as opposed to having to fly to Rio and Sao Paulo for concerts?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Raí, right now, he lives in a city close to São Paulo, very close to São Paulo. He moved there a year ago, maybe a little bit less than that.
3 or 4 months ago, 6 months ago, I moved here.
6 months ago, yeah. And right now I'm in Berlin, Germany. But in the Northeast, we have like quite a different style of music. I think all regions of Brazil have very different styles of music, but the music of the northeast of Brazil, it is a combination of traditional native Brazilian music with some native Brazilian musical instruments, with music that was brought from Africa by the slaves, and also some influences from Portuguese and from French music. So it is quite a cauldron of different cultures that were blended and fermented throughout hundreds of years that came to be now. And like this basic instrumentation of Brazilian Northeastern folk music ends up into a few musical genres that we can wrap into the big umbrella term of forró. Forró is a term that probably, it might have come from English for the expression for all, because the story goes that the railway manager from Great Britain came and like bought these accordions, these big old accordions, and gave them to people so that they could make music for all, and that came to be known as forró. But it might be an urban myth. But the instruments are accordion, are triangle, played in a very, very different syncopated method. Like always, two beats on the one, 2 beats on the two. The tempo is usually 2/4. We also have the tamborim, the pandeiro, some percussion, a lot of zabumba, which is like a bass drum that you hang on your chest, which does a dotted note rhythm. So all the music from northeastern Brazil comes from that tradition, and it always derives from that. And we try to put a lot of that on our recent record, and that really differs from the music of the rest of Brazil, which usually you go close to São Paulo, we have traditional music that's played with viola. It's not very harmonically complex. It's quite a sing-song writer thing. And then you go to Rio de Janeiro and you have all that music that was brought from the slave countries that ended up in samba, in bossa nova, which is samba blended with jazz. And they all kind of derive from the fact that we are a country that was heavily impacted by immigration, be it voluntary or involuntary immigration in the case of slave trade.
And to the second question,
which was,
how often do you get musicians touring in that part of Brazil as opposed to having to go to Sao Paulo for concerts?
It's pretty close to nothing. I think maybe 10 years ago we got some big shows, but it ended pretty quick. I think the last big show that we had in Recife, it's a city close to João Pessoa, where we're from, was Paul McCartney, and that was it. Now, if you want to go to watch a big artist, or not even a big artist, if you want to watch any independent artist that has some attraction behind it, you have to go to at least to São Paulo, because they won't come to João Pessoa or even close to it. Maybe because of the cost, maybe it's because of the lack of interest. I cannot like pinpoint an exact reason, but I think it's just some of all this.
Yeah, and also I think that might have influenced Papangu at some point, because we were kind of making the music that we wanted to be able to hear. Like the music that wouldn't come to us, we started making it, you know. There was basically no scene for progressive avant-garde music in the northeast of Brazil, for example. We had some stuff back in the 70s, a very cool movement called Udi Grudi, with people like Alceu Valença, Cátia de França, but like it died in 1979 and we had nothing of the sorts ever since, you know. So we kind of have like to tread our own ground and maybe play the music that we wanted to be able to hear in a concert.
And that lack of presence of art in general in our region reflected on us, because the first big opportunity that we got, it was in São Paulo. If we were to depend on our art scene in João Pessoa, maybe we would be just playing for ourselves, just to enjoy what we do. But now, because of this opportunity that we had in São Paulo, the first gig we played there, it was a cool metal fest. The things changed a lot. So it reflects on every band that starts to do, that wants to do something different. Because in João Pessoa, you have to look really well for opportunities, and they don't like maybe reflect as well to the other regions in Brazil. But if you go to São Paulo, people will look for you.
All right.
Yeah. We actually can play like 4 days in 1 week in São Paulo and pack the house every day. It's crazy, but it's the only place in Brazil where we can do that. You know, we can't do that in our hometown, which is quite sad.
I think you just need to post more "Come to Brazil" comments.
I think this is the answer we need in Raí.
Come to João Pessoa, because if we say come to Brazil, people will come to São Paulo. We have to come to João Pessoa.
That's true. That's true. Backfires.
Oh, God damn it. Yeah, you can't expect people to know where each city in Brazil is.
Yes.
They barely know where Brazil is.
It's a small country.
Yeah, I've met people who are from the US, I think, who thought like that we still lived in forests.
You don't?
No, we don't really. And the funny thing that this girl who told me that, she was from Detroit. So I'll save myself from making any comments on Detroit.
Fair enough. All right. Because both of you are Brazilian, and I suppose you're still in touch with other Brazilians who are part of the music scene. There was a big event in Brazilian music in the past couple of years, specifically about Sepultura. That one, the Sepultura is retiring, the one that has Andreas Kisser in it, and Max Cavalera has been re-recording the old albums. What do people in the Brazilian scene think about these two things?
Well, in general, about Sepultura retiring, people think it's about time. I think they gave all they have to give. With all the respect, Sepultura is a huge influence in myself. I think most of my compositions starts with Sepultura in mind. So, but I think that if they feel like they gave all they have to give, we have to respect that decision. I think if it's coming from them, we cannot argue, we cannot fight about it. It's the thing about respect. When you respect the music you're making, you know when you have to end, when you have to start, when you have to come back. I think that's about it with Sepultura. About the Cavalera thing, personally, I think it's unnecessary to re-record what you've done. I think it's a little bit disrespectful, even though the recordings are awesome. I heard what they did and it sounds perfect. It's amazing.
I do have one comment to say though. I really am okay with the re-recording aspect of it when it comes to artists retaining control of the masters, because sometimes the masters that they have given it through a shitty contract to recording label, and they can't really take it back. So the only way that they can actually make money from it is to re-record it, and then they have a new master that is completely under their control, and I find that absolutely perfect. It might, of course, not have the same spiritual impact that the original recording will have, but it's still, from a point of view of bands regaining control of their art, I think that's amazing.
And that actually happened with Sepultura. Sepultura, when I think when they signed with Roadrunner, they made a really bad deal. And if it's coming from that perspective, I think Max and Igor are totally correct about doing it.
Yeah, I've been quite happy because Bestial Devastation and their debut album were ones that I've often found very overlooked. Even though Sepultura is like massive band, but the influence of those two albums on the first wave of black metal and on extreme metal often has been overlooked. So seeing them have a second lease of life, and especially I've seen Cavalera twice since, playing those songs live and once again giving them that lease of life has been amazing.
Have you heard Pat Brick?
Yep, I have.
Yeah, Pat Brick are fucking cool. And also they're split with Death Kids, Death Brick collaboration project. That's really
I reviewed that one.
Oh yeah, good stuff. I'm meeting the boys from Death Kids later today. They're coming to Europe now with the guys from this avant-garde grindcore band called Tess, also from Brazil. Amazing band. And they're actually staying at my place for a couple of days here.
Oh, okay.
Right before they do their European tour.
That's cool. I've seen Death Kids live for the first time this year. Or was it last year? I think it was last year. at Roadburn, which I suppose that's possibly where I'll be seeing you for the first time in case it ever happens.
Hopefully it ever happens.
We hope so.
We ended up in the essential playlist,
Mhm.
the thing that they have, but it would be quite good to get an invitation from them.
All right. We have 10 more minutes until the free version of Zoom kicks me out. What are so the way I see Papangu's music, I can ask about your influences in two directions, either the prog ones or the Brazilian ones. So I want to start with the prog ones because obviously the name that is on everybody's lips because you've been tagged as zeuhl is Magma. And that's a name that's still it's obviously the most famous name in zeuhl, but it's still not very popular among outside of people who are very into prog.
That is quite true.
Right.
Do
So
you have a specific question?
yeah. For first, I wanted to flex my musical knowledge.
That's one must.
Yeah. How did you get into specifically going for this kind of sound in prog?
Okay, so I think the Magma part comes from me because I was the only guy who actually liked them at first. I think then afterwards, people like Hector and Rodolfo and Pedro also started to listen to them. But I think I was the main responsible person for bringing their sound into our sound. So basically, I've always listened to Magma ever since I was like 13 or something, and I really fell in like an obsession with them when I was 15. And I learned to play most of their repertoire on bass and some of it on guitar as well, like including the long pieces, which are like a treat if you want to like fall in love with music, because there's so much stuff in it and amazing melodies. And the thing that they did that I loved so much and it made a lot of sense to try and get a metal take on it was the fact that they use a lot of the same compositional techniques that you would find in music by Bela Bartok and by Igor Stravinsky, and uniting that with North American, African American soul music. So basically, it was the blend of the two genres that I listened to the most when I was a teenager. So they blended the European 20th century classical tradition with soul music, with disco, with R&B, with jazz, and with funk music. So that was like, and that mixture gave this earthy, evil harmony that came from the Western classical music to the groovy and funky and rhythmically cool African American music. So that stuff just sounded amazing. When they wanted to be heavy, you could feel like how evil and how rhythmically catchy it was. It's music that makes you tap your foot, your left foot in 16th notes, you know, the whole time. And I wanted to see how I could transplant that into metal, because some bands had also tried to do that, like the band Yeti had done it before and tried to do a take on it. The bands like Guapo also tried to do it, but they were kind of like this Magma copy. They weren't really super original. They sounded very nice, but they weren't really doing anything groundbreaking. And the Swedish band called Gustav Berling Saga, this prog rock band from Sweden, tried to do it too, to some extent, but they never really made it metal. They made it heavy, but they didn't really bring it in the aesthetics of metal. And then I thought it would be nice to try and do it. So I tried to learn how to make a Magma song or to make an Eschaton song or any other zeuhl stuff and try to apply those composition techniques into Papangu. And so that was basically how riffs like the main riffs from San Francisco came to be, which is the first song on our debut album. Like the final section of Holoceno, the last song on our first album, also came to be. And like songs with very heavy ostinatos, like Oferenda no Guitar, the first single from our second record, came to be. So basically, they were trying to use up some of those ideas, but not copy them, but like to try and give birth to them in a wholly different original context.
And it came it all came pretty naturally, because when we sit to compose, Marco never says, "Oh, I want to make it sound like Magma. I want to make it sound like this." No, we just, since his influence come from really early from his, he said since he was 13 he listened to Magma. I think the sound is on his DNA right now, so it just comes out of him naturally. He doesn't, "Oh, I want to sound like Magma. I want to sound like this. I want to sound like that." It just comes. We enjoy what's he's bringing, and then we develop on it. It's pretty good, pretty amazing actually.
Okay. Now onto the Brazilian music side. Well, my first question is hearing it blended with jazz fusion and prog and metal. It sounds strangely warm. What do you think is like the musical reason behind it?
I think warm is such a undefined term, can refer to a lot of things, but I think the warmth you might be feeling is like a sense of familiarity or coziness, maybe. I think the Brazilian music is very, very rich melodically, and when you tend to try and compose in the Brazilian style, it tends to come off that way. And usually melodies are very well interwoven with the different changes in harmony. And we try to like step on the gas when it came to making harmony more a little complex and a little sophisticated on this record. And by sophisticated, I don't mean like steely Dan. I mean like a little complex and to make usage of minor and major modes and stuff like, and seventh chords and ninth chords in order to make things a little bit broader and less simple than just a regular power chord. There's only so much you can do with a power chord, so to some extent, or at least as much as I can do a lot with a power chord. But once I start bringing, and also Rodolfo and Pedro and Hector and I start bringing other different shapes of harmony, then the thing opens up. And I think that allows for melodies to have more space and to communicate more and to try and get more emotions to show up when we compose. So maybe that's the warmth that comes from Brazilian music.
Mm-hmm. And Brazil is one of the countries where I've seen a lot of music being praised outside of the Anglo-centric sphere and outside of maybe Japan, which is also a country that gets a lot of love in the online music sphere. But Brazil, and especially the music from the 60s and 70s, like Os Mutantes and Gay Paul and a lot of this other stuff. What would you say would be the best entry point into Brazilian music for someone, which I suppose a lot of the people watching this would be, who might not have had much contact with popular Brazilian music?
I think I will have a very good answer, but I have to pitch in and just say something. There's a record called Clube na Esquina, which was made by Milton Nascimento and Lô Borges, which was basically a slightly Beatles influence double or triple album that they did back in 1971. That is absolutely a very easy entry point into the wide-ranging emotions and different styles of Brazilian music. I wholly recommend that one.
That's perfect. But I think if you want to learn something from the northeastern region from Brazil, I think a good starting point would be the early Alceu Valença records and maybe Ave Sangria, because I think Ave Sangria is a little proggy. I think they're from the 70s, right, Marco?
Yeah, they're from the 70s.
It's a prog band from Recife, and it sounds like amazing because in the 70s in the northeastern region, maybe you could find 2 or 3 people that like prog, and to find these kind of people and make a band that to sound like they do in that day, it's pretty amazing. And they implement the elements from the northeastern region in their sound pretty flawlessly, I think. And Alceu Valença is a titan in music here in the northeastern region. And his early records, they have a pretty good range, so that you can say, oh, I like that. So if you like that kind of music, you can deepen your knowledge and looking for other bands, maybe for Hall, maybe other styles. I think Zé Ramalho is also a good call for that. I don't know if you have any other recommendations, Marco?
Yeah, I also have Hermeto Pascoal to recommend because he
Hermeto.
is basically like a genius of traditional Brazilian music, and he's extremely avant-garde, but he is very well versed in all Brazilian rhythms and genres. So I wholly recommend hitting up his discography and picking anything, really.
All right. Because we have less than 1 minute, I have just one important question for you, Marco, because you live in Germany and
Yes.
you're Brazilian. How often
Yep.
are you reminded by people there of the 7-1 match score?
More often than I would like.
Fair enough. Any last words?
We can. I can just create another meeting here and just invite you, so we can like actually have a proper goodbye. 1 second.
All right.
I'll send you a link in a minute.